Okay, so now we have to start to consider how we're going to take our default pose at 90 degrees and actually turn the hand from supinated to pronated. Okay, so really what we want to do is we want to do this on a layer just like we've done in previous exercises. So you can see I've been working under base mods for the duration of this, so I can turn that off, and you can see that it just conforms. Well, everything is stuck on that layer. So you can do really interesting things with layers if you haven't played with them. Especially when you're working at high res, it's really fun to blend and combine different layers in different percentages. You can even go negative and see what happens with the negative of your sculpt, whatever you've done to it from the default to the start. So it's really useful to have things captured in layers. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this, we'll call this Pronation. How about that? And I'm going to put it at the top layer, but we're going to actually do the pronation at level 1 and maybe level 2. So I'll turn my polyframe on, and you can see, so really what we have to do is we have to rotate the palm the other direction. So I guess it would be, as it's facing us now, it would be clockwise. Okay, and the secret is that this all happens around the radius, right? So we have to remember where the radius sits in this this whole operation. So remember, ulna is sitting here, medial epicondyle, ulna, and then as we get out towards the lateral epicondyle, the radius sits in a little notch, almost like a little suction cup, a little half hemisphere on the end of the humerus that the radius sucks onto. And so it starts small in here, and then it expands into the larger chunk of the wrist as it gets down here. Okay, so I'm going to place my bone at level 4, my transpose bone, which is going to be a rotate bone, or a rotate gizmo, or whatever you want to call the transpose lines. And I'm going to try to align this with the axis of the radius as near as I can tell from my landmarks that I have existing. Okay, so really I can tell you that it's just a little bit lateral to the olecranon, right? So radius and ulna are kind of adjacent to each other, as you would expect. Okay, and then we have to get it at the right depth, so I'm going to rotate this around, and I'm going to pop it into the forearm a little bit because it sits up roughly about here. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that axis. The end bit, so this is the start of the rotation. The end of the rotation needs to be on axis with how the radius ends up flipping over the ulna, which is down here. Okay, so really this doesn't happen at center of mass of the radius. So the center of mass of the radius is what I'm carving out right now. It happens more just a little bit to the left of the ulna, right? So it's going to be something like this, right? So it almost is going to create the radius wrapping around the ulna, which is the impression we want to get. So it kind of goes from outside to roughly kind of diagonal to the other part, to the other half. Okay, so now I'm going to go down to level 1, and I'm just going to grab the middle white circle and see what happens. Okay, this will be kind of the assessment for how we've done with our bone placement, if this twists correctly. Okay, don't twist it just yet though, because we have to create a mask, right? Let's not forget that. So pretty much we're going to distribute the rotation from down here to the radius, or kind of the hand end. Okay, so this is going to be what our mask should look like. Which is a little, if we blur it quite a bit, we'll get a little bit of twist down here. And this again is me replacing the bone. And I'll just step up in resolution a little bit so that we can see how my alignment is. So I like that. And this is going to pop up here. It's roughly about there. Look at it from this view. Do we have diagonal? Yes. Okay, let's step back down to level 1 and twist. Okay, so really we're going to get a lot of twisting because of our topology. But we're almost there. So you're going to see, pretty much you can see that all the stuff that we've sculpted is going to have to be reworked with the palm down. And unfortunately, this is one of the limitations of actual topology, is that it gets quite rough when it's twisted 180 degrees. But you can see kind of maybe in your mind's eye how muscles that flow from one origin to insertion have to really redouble themselves or reverse themselves when they when the transpose happens. So you can see that all my origins and insertions are sliding around, and I've lost volume because that's what happens when you do this sort of thing. But from here it's going to be a resculpt to make sure that this this looks right. Okay, so we're actually going to we have our insertions correct here for our palmar muscles, but we're going to have to distribute the rotation down a little further. Okay, and if you had a bit of a mask that went a little bit further down to the elbow, you might have gotten a little more rotation out of that. Okay, so that's getting the palm roughly in place. From here, there's a lot of modifications that have to happen to biceps, to the flow of the flexors and extensors to get it back to looking good and looking a little bit like the reference. If I'm just going to go do a quick fix on some of this other stuff, I can go in here and use the nudge brush to really kind of slide some of these muscles around. And this is not going to be perfect because, again, we're gonna quickly reach the limits of our topology. But for this exercise, it's okay. And we can look a little bit better at, say, level 2 to see what's going on. So you can actually see how we've done with the ridge muscles kind of coming across and all the way down to the head of the radius down here. Quickly going with some inflate to put some of my volume back in the wrist. And anybody who's ever tried to skin a character, like for computer graphics work, for production, or a game character, knows the limitations of twist joints as far as conserving volume goes. Okay, so hopefully with a little bit of that you can see that we're getting a little bit closer to what we're supposed to be looking like. And from there I need to go in obviously and adjust the biceps and things like that. A quick kind of job at level 1 will get our volumes closer to what they should be, but I'm going to have to do more than just pull it. Let me just go in with a little transpose mask so I can pull it straight down. We'll have to look at the actual forms as they're redistributed, but this will be interesting to look at as I toggle the layer on and off. Okay, so this is just kind of a naive start. It's not going to be perfect the first time, but that is pronation, a quick pronation, and palm back. It doesn't get much simpler than that. Okay, so obviously a lot of this stuff has to be adjusted based on observing the reference, but as far as transposing goes, that's roughly the idea to get you started. Okay, hope that was helpful.